8. Dwight Ritchie. Dwight Ritchie was a champion boxer from Australia who had only lost 2 out of 21 career fights when he was met by an unexpected tragedy one night in 2019 while doing what he loved. Instead of spending the evening out partying like most 27-year-olds would be, Ritchie was training at a gym in Melbourne. After a troubled phase during his younger years, he credited boxing with keeping him on the straight and narrow. He even once publicly stated that without boxing, he would definitely be in jail. Ritchie had also defeated childhood cancer twice, and things only seemed to be looking up for him as he found continued success in the professional boxing world. The unthinkable happened that night while he was sparring with fellow boxer Michael Zerafa to help him prepare for an upcoming match. After taking a body shot, Ritchie retreated to his corner of the ring and then collapsed. Emergency workers tried to revive him, but he died from his injuries, leaving behind a wife and 3 kids. Members of the boxing community were left reeling from the unexpected tragedy, which is unfortunately a reality of the sport. Numerous boxers have lost their lives in career-related accidents in recent years. Some of these other tragedies include 27-year-old Patrick Day, who died shortly before Ritchie after being knocked out during a match in Chicago, and 28-year-old Davy Brown Jr., who passed away in 2017 after taking a hit in the ring at Ingleburn. 7. Military mishap. 16 military members were participating in a training exercise off the California coast one night in 2020 when the nearly 40-year-old amphibious assault vehicle, AAV, they were in began to take on water. The vessel was on its way back to a Navy ship near San Clemente Island when the crew signaled to the rest of the unit for help. A rescue boat and 2 other vehicles responded and managed to pull 8 Marines from the water. However, only 7 of them survived, while the other Marine sadly died later from his injuries. The 26-ton, 23.6 metric tons, or 23,587 kilograms, seafaring tank sank quickly in the 380-foot deep, 117 meters water, and 7 Marines and a Navy sailor remained missing. A search ensued but was eventually called off, and the 8 missing service members were presumed dead. An investigation blamed the accident on inadequate training, poor maintenance, and flawed judgment among those in charge of the exercise. Despite these findings, the loved ones of those who perished were left with more questions than answers. Alita Bath, who lost her 19-year-old son, PFC Evan Bath, in the training exercise, told National Public Radio, NPR, earlier this year that it seems like nobody wants to take the blame for what happened. She felt like they were not getting justice and military officials were going in circles pointing fingers at each other. The officers who were in charge of the training later claimed that they told their commanders that there were problems, but that their superiors did not stop the exercise. Several troops who hadn't passed their required swimming tests were somehow allowed to participate, leaving them without the skills they needed to survive a disaster at sea. If nothing else, the tragedy highlighted an ongoing legacy of shortcomings in the Marines and Navy, including equipment problems and inadequate training. Speaking with NPR, Lupita Garcia said that she never expected to lose her 21-year-old son, Lance Corporal Marco Barranco, in a training exercise. Through tears, she said that she would have rather lost her son in combat because she would have been more prepared for it. Nearly 2 years after the accident, she said that she couldn't move on because she never got justice, echoing the sentiments of other family members who are struggling to make sense of what happened. 6. Nancy Kerrigan. Champion figure skater Nancy Kerrigan had just finished practicing for the upcoming U.S. Women's Championships in 1994 when a baton-wielding assailant clubbed her above the right knee at Cobo Arena in Detroit. The hitman got away, and while Kerrigan was spared from any lasting injuries, she was injured badly enough to be forced out of the competition. Her biggest rival, Tanya Harding, won the championship and secured a spot in the 1994 Olympics. A few days later, journalist Ann Schatz received an anonymous letter accusing Harding of being involved in the attack, along with her ex-husband Jeff Gillooly and two other men, Derek Smith and Shane Stant. Harding denied any involvement when questioned by the FBI, even after the other three co-conspirators confessed to their roles in the assault. By then, the feds knew that Gillooly had paid Stant $6,500 to carry out the crime. In the meantime, Kerrigan recovered in time to make the Olympic team. The U.S. Olympic Committee thought about kicking Harding off the team, but she filed a lawsuit and managed to stop it from happening. Those who knew Harding personally would later say that she craved a gold medal so badly, she would have done anything to make it happen. A record number of viewers tuned into the Olympics that year due to the scandal. The ongoing controversy seemed to have a devastating effect on Harding, who started crying when a lace broke on one of her skates during a performance. She was given a chance to start the performance over, but was ultimately unable to pull herself together. She finished in 8th place, while Kerrigan took home the silver medal. Harding eventually realized that the evidence against her was mounting, and that the case wasn't simply going to go away. She pleaded guilty to hindering the prosecution of Kerrigan's attackers, and was sentenced to 3 years of probation, along with community service and a $160,000 fine. The U.S. Figure Skating Association revoked her national title and banned her from the organization for life. Gillooly took a plea deal and only ended up receiving a 2-year sentence. He publicly apologized to Kerrigan, but acknowledged that his words most likely seemed hollow. Smith, who drove the getaway car, and Stant, who was responsible for hitting Kerrigan on the knee, were both sentenced to 18 months. In 2013, Shane Stant gave his first interview in over a dozen years to journalist Matt Crossman. He described how he and his co-conspirators carefully plotted the attack on Kerrigan, and claimed that he was initially asked to cut her Achilles tendon, but said that he refused to go that far. He told Crossman that he had put the ordeal behind him and has since turned his life around. This attack remains one of the biggest scandals in sports history to this day. 5. Amphibious failure. In an effort to replace the aging Vietnam-era fleet of amphibious assault vehicles, AAV, that the U.S. Marines have been using for decades, the military designed the Amphibious Combat Vehicle, or ACV. It's bigger and heavier than its predecessor, running on 8 wheels instead of tracks. The ACV is also faster in the water and equipped with modern technology. The 13th Marine Expeditionary Unit, MEU, has carried out several training exercises off the San Diego coast with the new machines, which were stated to deploy for the first time in 2022. But they ran into unexpected issues with the vehicles when an ACV rolled onto its side in heavy surf, and another became disabled. The handicapped vehicle was towed to shore, while the ACV that fell over remained stuck for several days as the military tried to retrieve it. Footage of the incident shows the 2 ACVs struggling in rough seas as a group of Marines jump out of one of the vehicles. Luckily, everyone aboard both vehicles evacuated and made it safely to shore with no injuries. While the incident happened amid unusually high swells stemming from a storm in the South Pacific, the Marines have paused all of their waterborne ACV operations for the time being while they investigate what happened. After making headlines just 2 years ago for another amphibious vehicle sinking that resulted in the death of 9 service members, it's a wise idea to err on the side of better safe than sorry. 4. ALYSSA CAHOON. 17-year-old identical twin sisters ALYSSA and Brianna CAHOON were recruited into the Pennsylvania Army National Guard in 2022. Both girls then traveled to Fort Jackson in Columbia, South Carolina to go through basic training together. Just weeks after their arrival, ALYSSA collapsed and suffered a medical emergency during a morning training exercise. She was rushed to a hospital off base, but doctors were unable to save her life. Sadly, she died 5 days later with her family at her bedside. The Army announced that it was investigating the young woman's untimely death, but released few other details in the immediate aftermath of the tragedy. In a recent statement, the CAHOON family said that ALYSSA died from a rare heart abnormality that she was completely unaware of. Brianna also apparently suffers from the condition and will receive an internal defibrillator to prevent her from suffering the same fate as her twin, according to a Facebook post by the girl's mother, Susan CAHOON. The family thanked the Ronald McDonald House for helping them during this difficult time and encouraged those who want to help to save the tabs from their soda cans for a fundraiser that will benefit the charity. 3. Short-sighted shooting. 35-year-old Sergeant Gavin Hillier was a decorated member of the British Army's 1st Battalion Welsh Guards Regiment and had served in Kosovo, Iraq, and Afghanistan. After surviving several combat tours, his career came to an unexpected end in 2021 when he was fatally shot by a fellow soldier during a live firing exercise at Castle Martin Base in Wales. An inquiry found that the man who shot Hillier mistook him for a target, most likely due to his poor eyesight. At the time, he wasn't wearing prescription lenses and didn't own a pair of service-issued glasses. An ophthalmologist determined that the lack of proper eyewear, the low lighting conditions, and the featureless landscape may have caused blurred vision. A report on the incident noted that the man most likely knew that he was required to wear glasses. To prevent a similar tragedy from happening in the future, the panel that oversaw the inquiry made several recommendations. One of these proposals included establishing a way to ensure that soldiers who are supposed to wear corrective lenses are actually wearing them for live firing exercises. The report also suggests raising awareness about the available resources that can help to keep an individual soldier and unit in compliance with military standards. 2. Melanie Coleman. 20-year-old nursing student Melanie Coleman was a gifted gymnast who performed exceptionally in and out of the classroom at Southern Connecticut State University. She had reached the highest level in the USA Junior Olympics program and was known across the state for her athletic abilities, according to her coach, Tom Alberti. Sadly, her promising future was cut short in 2019 when she fell on the uneven bars during a routine training exercise and injured her head and neck. Coleman was immediately rushed to the hospital, where she died 2 days later from complications related to her spinal injury. Her family, fellow athletes, friends, and coach were devastated by the news of what can only be described as a freak accident. They remembered the young woman as an enthusiastic and hard worker, as well as a dedicated member of the community. 1. Houston tipping. A Los Angeles Police Department (LAPD) officer named Houston Tipping lost his life in 2022 during a training exercise for the department's police academy. The incident left his grieving family in search of answers in order to find out how such an unlikely tragedy could have happened. According to the Los Angeles Coroner's Office, the 32-year-old was participating in a grappling exercise when he sustained a severe spinal injury. Tipping and a student both fell to the ground, and he landed on his neck, causing 4 vertebrae fractures and several other injuries. Records show that he immediately went limp and that he was possibly dropped on his head. Deputy Medical Examiner Dr. Lawrence Wynn, who performed the autopsy, determined that several of the man's injuries resulted from the attempts to save his life. These attempts included emergency surgery and a device that performs mechanical chest compressions that is known to cause rib fractures and liver injuries. In his report, Wynn acknowledged that deaths at the hands of others are typically ruled as homicides, but he deemed Tipping's death as an accident He reassured that his office had carefully considered the circumstances before making its official ruling. Nguyen likened Tipping's death to an accidental tragedy that can unfortunately be expected to sometimes happen in organized sports and exercises, which come with certain risks that participants are usually aware of. However, Tipping's mother, Shirley Huffman, is unconvinced by the findings and believes that something less innocent took place the day her son was fatally injured. Her lawyer, Bradley Gage, has accused the LAPD of failing to protect one of its own. In a wrongful death suit filed against the city, Huffman claimed that Tippings was catastrophically injured during an exercise that was intended to simulate a mob. The lawsuit alleges that he was struck repeatedly in the head to the point of needing stitches, his neck was broken several times, and that other officers had questioned the particular training exercise after being injured themselves. LAPD spokesman Captain Kelly Muniz told the Los Angeles Times that the agency can't comment on the situation, but said that an investigation was underway to determine if any charges needed to be made. Gage declined to comment on Huffman's behalf, other than saying that the allegations in the lawsuit are based on interviews with witnesses and others with knowledge of what happened to Tipping. LAPD Chief Michael Moore adamantly denied the allegation that Tippings was beaten, but offered his condolences to the family and promised that the agency was investigating the matter. They're now trying to determine what steps can be taken to prevent a similar tragedy from happening in the future. Thanks for watching. Have you ever suffered from a work-related injury while training for a job? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. We'll see you next time. Bye.